Good evening, and thank you for joining us on our pre-camp informational webinar before we hit the grounds of baseball heaven in the coming weeks for our Northeast sessions 2 through 6. Before we dive in, a brief agenda for the evening. After some quick introductions to who you'll be hearing from this evening, and then also seeing and hearing from on site, we're going to go into a quick, some of the logistical details of camp, how to approach camp from your recruiting process, and then we're going to dedicate a large part of the evening to a live Q&A to make sure we get all your guys' questions answered in real time as well. So first up, some introductions.
Thank you, Max. Good evening, everybody. My name is Corey Spera. I help direct the honor roll program along with Max, who's my co-host here this evening. I am an honor roll camp alumni. I attended camp in 2009 and 2010. It was a big part of my recruiting process, helped me get recruited and ultimately attend Lafayette College, where I was a 4-year member of the baseball team and lucky enough to be the team captain there for the back half of my career.
Thank you, Corey. And I am Max McKenna. I'm our Senior Manager of Product Marketing here at Head First. I graduated from Amherst College in 2011, where I also played baseball. After that, went into teaching and coaching at the high school level at a couple independent schools, first as a teaching fellow and assistant baseball coach at Phillips Andover Academy, and then as a head baseball coach and history instructor at a small private school outside New York City called the Masters School. Next up, a face and voice that you'll see and hear a lot when we are on site at camp, our founder and president, Brendan Sullivan. Brendan graduated from Stanford after just 3 years in 1996, had a tremendous baseball career leading up to Stanford, at Stanford, and then well after as well. Graduated from Stanford, went on to be drafted in the 26th round by the Padres, where he played up to AAA. Spring training with the Texas Rangers, founded Head First in the off seasons while he was playing, and has helped grow it into certainly what it is today in terms of high academic recruiting. Another person that you'll be meeting on site is our camp advisory partner, Diamond College Advisory Team, or DCAT. DCAT is a college advisory program for high academic student athletes who are looking to pursue and maximize their opportunities, not only for baseball or softball at the college level, but also academics and finding the right academic fit to really make up that holistic college experience. On site for our sessions in New York, we'll be joined by Justin Kronk. Justin is the founder and executive director of DCAT, former full-time team member here at Head First, where he headed up our former college advisory wing. He was a 2-sport athlete also at Amherst College, where he played baseball and football. Then he went into coaching as a recruiting coordinator and assistant coach at Amherst while getting his master's down the road at UMass, and then at BC, UNC Asheville, head coach at Shenandoah. You see there a long list and a lot of experience in guiding families like the ones that join us at camp through this recruiting process. We'll be hearing from him certainly on site, and you'll see him and his team around camp. Next up, Corey, you want to talk a little bit about the preparing for camp from a logistical standpoint?
Absolutely, Max. Thank you very much. I want to start with some basics here, just sort of the where and when of camp. Lucky enough to be hosting camp at Baseball Heaven, which is in Yabank in central Long Island, New York. We're going to be getting our camp day going with our check-in process. That's going to start at 7 a.m. Gates will be open for folks to drive in before then. Certainly feel free to arrive early, but we will not start checking in players until right at 7 a.m. That'll last for about a half an hour, and then we'll get going with our camp programming starting at 7:40. Our sessions that we have coming up, we've got 5 of them. They're all 2-day sessions, and they're starting on Monday, July 29th. We will have camp Monday, July 29th through Thursday, August 8th, with the exception of no camp on Friday, August 2nd. So any of those days that I just mentioned, you can stop by. We're going to have camp, but Friday, August 2nd, there will be no honor roll camp happening at Baseball Heaven on Long Island. Here's a nice overhead view of the facility. Obviously, a great place to run an event like ours. Max will be talking a lot later about engagement, but as you can imagine, with a lot of coaches and players in this space, plenty of opportunities to get exposure. I want to direct your attention towards the top of the screen there. There'll be a red arrow. There are a couple of gates to get into the actual sort of baseball part of the facility. The gate that red arrow goes through is where we're going to push everybody in the morning. So our check-in will take place through that gate, right where that red X is. From there, you will pick up your jersey. If you're a pitcher, sort of going through a separate check-in process as well. That'll happen very quickly. And then you'll head down that pathway and take a left between fields 2 and 3. You'll get to the center tower, which is sort of marked by that green dot on the screen. Take another left, and you'll head up between fields 1 and 2. There'll be some bleachers down the left field line of field 1, and that's where we're going to host our all-camp meeting, which is going to start right at 7:40 to kick off our programming for the 2 days. So again, as I just mentioned, that's how we're going to start camp. 7:40 all-camp meeting, parents, players, everybody involved. We're going to, pretty soon after we start that meeting, release the players to go get stretched out for the rest of the day. Once we release the players, we're going to have a parents-only meeting to follow that all-camp meeting. That's going to be hosted by Brendan, who Max just introduced. He's the president of our company. Give parents a better idea of the schedule for the next 2 days, and certainly give them an opportunity to ask any questions that they might have. Once we get those players stretched out, right at 9 a.m., we're going to start our defensive showcase. A couple things about the defensive showcase. We're going to group the players up by primary position. Regardless of if you're registered as a primary first baseman, secondary first baseman, maybe not even registered as a first baseman, but you'd like to showcase as a first baseman, you're welcome to do that. So it doesn't matter what you're registered as. We let players defensively showcase at whatever position they'd like to. However, stipulation, you're only allowed to showcase at one defensive position. You'll get to do that in front of every single college coach in attendance on one field. But on the other field of the facility, we'll be doing some other objective measurement tests. So we'll be taking things like overhand velocity and the 60-yard dash. Also during this time, pitchers will not defensively showcase on the field in front of coaches. We do not want pitchers, those who are sort of primary pitchers, pitcher onlys, if you will, to get hot if they don't want to, get their arms going. So they're going to have a separate skill development session for them where they will be not be throwing any balls. After the defensive showcase, we will move right into our offensive showcase. Much like we sort of moved players around the facility during the defensive showcase by their position that they're showcasing at, hitters will hit in those same position groups. So if you showcased as a catcher, you'll hit with the rest of the catchers. We do that in the very nice indoor cages that Baseball Heaven has, and very similar to the defensive showcase. During the offensive showcase, we're not just hitting in front of the coaches who will be in there watching in the indoor cages. We'll be taking some other assessments as well, namely the exit velocity, which we will then pass along to the coaches later in the day. Once we get done with those showcases, that pretty much ends our morning programming and takes us into the afternoon and evening of day one. That's when we start our simulated games. So once every player signs in, checks in the morning of day one, they get assigned to teams. Those teams are going to play 1 9-inning game on day one and 2 6-inning games on day two. However, these games are not like your sort of high school games or travel ball games that you might play. These games are designed to facilitate action, maximize opportunities. Really, we've just put some rules in that make sure that players get equal amount of opportunities and are really in the best possible position to show their stuff in front of the college coaches. So there are plenty of rules that we have sort of imparted on these games to make sure that every player is going to get that maximum amount of exposure. We'll go over these rules on site. They're also going to be in the program that we give you when you check in. But just to name a few, as we have down here, Batting order is going to run continuously, so we don't play 3 up, 3 down each inning. We actually do 6 hitters per inning. And let's say there's a scenario where in the first game, the 5th batter that's written on the lineup card is the last batter to hit. We do not start that next game that the players play at the top of the lineup. We'll start with the 6th hitter. So again, that lineup is just written out randomly. It's not a batting order per se. So we will never sort of start at the top of the batting order for each game. Also, we're going to have defensive rotations throughout these games, making sure that players get to play at both their primary position, their secondary position, that they get equal amounts of playing time among their positional group. We balance these teams based on those positional capacities that we stay very true to during our registration process. So there's not going to be a scenario where there's a team with 8 shortstops on it. We balance those teams accordingly so that each shortstop on each team is going to ensure equal and proper playing time. So as I mentioned, on day 2, there are going to be more simulated games, 2 6-inning games. Your arrival time for those games depends on your team assignment. So teams are going to be split into 2 separate groups, and they'll basically have an early game slot or the second game slot on day 1. If you played in that earlier game slot on day 1 for your 9-inning game, you'll show up a little bit earlier for your games on day 2, and vice versa for those teams who played in the second game slot. Again, each team is going to play in 2 6-inning games. There is a little bit of additional programming in addition to those simulated games, so there will be no showcases. There will be a couple of opportunities for some content. First being a panel Q&A for parents. There are going to be 2 of those, so when parents arrive with their ball players for their first game, whether they're in the early or the second game slot on day 2, there's going to be an opportunity to listen to this panel Q&A that's hosted by Max, who's here with me hosting the webinar tonight, as well as Justin Kronk, who Max introduced earlier. Justin, again, he is the president of Diamond College Advisory Team. So 2 folks who really know a lot about this high academic recruiting process, and it's certainly one of the favorite parts of camp for many of our customers. There's also going to be an all-camp meeting that's going to be led by our head first staff. However, that's going to take place before teams play in their second game. So there will be no additional content, no additional meetings after each team's second game. Therefore, once you are done with your second game of camp, you are more than welcome to take off. We know many folks have distances to travel, whether that's via car or plane or what have you. You're certainly more than welcome to stay around, continue to interact with our staff or the college coaching staff. That is completely fine as well. But we will end that second day of camp by 5 p.m. Again, just to make sure that folks can catch their flights and get on the road and head safely back to wherever they traveled from. A couple of other notes that I'd like to mention here. Footwear, and this might be different from for some of you who have attended an event at Baseball Heaven before. Baseball Heaven is, of course, an all-turf facility. That includes the pitcher's mounds. Baseball Heaven has some new turf on their fields. Beautiful new turf, plays really, really nicely. Metal spikes are not going to be permitted on this turf, nor in the indoor facility where we do our offensive showcase. Some of you might have attended one of our camps or have played at Baseball Heaven before in metal spikes, but we are not going to allow players to wear those metal spikes at our camps this July and August. We certainly recommend turf shoes or molded rubber cleats for all players. Specifically for pitchers, our recommendation is definitely to wear turf shoes, maybe a pair of sort of hardy sneakers if you have them. From our experience, if you're wearing any type of cleat on those turf mounds, there tends to be a better chance of slipping. So certainly molded cleats, plastic cleats, turf shoes, all good for position players. Best recommendation for pitchers is indeed to wear a turf shoe. Also with regards to bats and helmets, Certainly know that some of you are traveling from far away, and maybe traveling with a helmet is just not realistic to fit in your carry-on bag. We'll have helmets in each dugouts for the games. Players are certainly not required to wear our helmets. They're more than welcome to wear their own, but we will have them in each dugout. And as for bats, those must meet the current high school regulations, so they can be BB core or wood. We know that some players do play with wood year round, so if they are most comfortable using a wood bat, we certainly encourage them to use that type of bat. However, all of the college programs that are going to be attending our events, they do use metal bats in their seasons, so we certainly encourage players to use those aluminum bats if they have them.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. And now we're going to talk a little bit about how to approach this camp opportunity, these 2 days, this day 1, day 2 on site at Baseball Heaven from your recruiting standpoint. And as you see here, we really break this up and think about this in 3 time phases in the lead up to camp and then all the way through after camp. And the first there you see is before camp. The recruiting process and this engagement opportunity with these college coaches doesn't start at, 8:30 a.m. on day 1 when you arrive at Baseball Heaven. This starts now. Right now is a great time for your student athletes to start doing some of the research, looking at the school list, which we'll talk about some of the schools a little bit in just a few slides, and start to think about the schools that are going to be at camp. Which of these have the qualities of a school that you are looking for, that your student athlete is looking for, that creates the experience they're looking for in college, and start some outreach, some proactive outreach by email, by phone, with these college programs. So between now and camp is a great time for players to reach out by email. Send Bobby Perez from Emory an email just saying, hey, Coach Perez, I'm really interested in Emory. Personalize it. I love that you guys are right in the heart of Atlanta. I'm, from Florida. It's close enough to home. It's got the type of business major that I'm looking at, whatever it is. Start that email outreach now so you can get on these coaches' radar. One note about this is that these coaches oftentimes are coming straight to our event from a different tournament or a different event that they're at somewhere else in the country. So they're doing a lot of traveling. They're hearing from a lot of student athletes at this time of the year in particular. So you might not hear back from these college coaches before camp, but that doesn't mean that they're not reading your emails. It doesn't mean that you should lose heart in that outreach. They are just simply sometimes too busy to process all the emails that come into their inbox. And so they are reading them, they are filing them, they are processing them, but they're not necessarily able to respond each and every one. Do some research and send out a genuine email and a personalized email to the schools that you are interested in as a student athlete between now and camp. And then that's a really good conversation touch point when you get to camp. And you see there, the key part of your at camp recruiting experience is one word 3 times: engage, engage, engage. It's a really unique platform at Head First that you have to engage directly with these college coaches and have these face-to-face conversations where they not only get to see you as a player, but also get a sense of you as a student athlete on and off the field, who you are as a young man to be able to play in their program if you're the right fit for their program. Pursuing these types of conversations with college coaches, introducing yourself, getting instruction from them, sharing the dugout and field with them, offers a lot of opportunities for you to start these conversations. And personally, I know that I was a pretty shy, introverted kid. This is where this second bullet point, the camp programming and Head First support and starting these conversations, is something that you will feel when you're on site. To be able to have these direct face-to-face conversations doesn't mean that you need to chase Coach Perez all over the complex, because at some point, these coaches are going to be in the dugout with you, on the field with you. They're going to be roaming between these 4 different fields if they're unassigned during a particular game slot. There's a lot of opportunities to start these conversations very organically. So for players that are a little bit more hesitant to start these conversations and just walk up and say, hey, I love Amherst College, I have to go there. Start those conversations around the game of baseball, because you're going to be on the field with Coach Kiefer from Amherst, and you can ask him how they coach, double cuts from the right center field corner in their program. And get a sense not just of who he is as a coach, how they run parts of their program, and certainly vice versa, where these coaches have a really unique opportunity not just to see you play as a student athlete and know how hard you hit the ball, or what your glove looks like at shortstop, but who you are as a young man, as a student athlete, for the cultural fit for their program. And another really key piece is this third bullet, the post-camp follow-up. These 2 days, day 1, day 2 at Head First, is not just an isolated 2-day event in your recruiting process. It is a platform for you guys to use to continue to make strides well after camp. It is crucial, and we'll talk about this during the recruiting panel, Justin and I. It is crucial that student athletes continue the conversations that they started before or at camp in some after camp follow-up with coaches, whether it's a handwritten letter or an email or a call or an official visit, whatever that next step is. It is absolutely crucial that student athletes really take charge and be proactive in their recruiting process and really follow up with these coaches after camp that they're able to connect with. This is not a standalone 2-day event. It is a platform for you to help continue to move your recruiting process forward at these schools. Now, speaking of these schools, we're really proud to partner with some of the best schools in the country. You see here, this is a partial list of the schools that will be on site. We have between 90 and 100 colleges coming to each of these sessions. One thing you'll notice is these schools offer a wide variety of different experiences. Air Force, very different than UVA. Vanderbilt and UVA, both national champions in the last couple of years, very different experience. UChicago, very different from Williams. So you see here, the single uniting factor is that they all offer really incredible academic opportunities at the college level, but they also offer very different and a wide variety of different experiences to really provide as much of a fit for as many student athletes as possible who are looking to pursue not just baseball and not just necessarily academics, but this holistic college fit at the next level.
Max, thank you for that. Just a couple more things from my end. I want to take a moment just to talk about a little bit of NCAA recruiting legislation and how it applies to us at camp. So about 18 months ago, the NCAA came down with a ruling that essentially said this. If you haven't completed September 1st of your junior year, then you may not have a recruiting conversation with a Division I coach. So really want to unpack that and sort of explore what that means for us at camp. So would love to start with the class of 2020. So these are our rising high school seniors. So these are students who have indeed completed September 1st of their junior year. That means that if you're a rising senior, if you're a member of this class of 2020, you are eligible to have in-person recruiting conversations directly with these college coaches of the Division I ranks while you are at camp. Nothing is off base for you guys. You are more than welcome to sort of explore all those types of conversations. You can speak with the coach from Lafayette College and tell him why you think that you're a great fit for that program, and he in return is sort of able to try to convince you that that's the best program for you at the next level. That type of hard recruiting conversation is able to happen at camp between members of the class of 2020 and Division I college coaches in attendance. To make this a little bit easier for everybody, if you are a member of the class of 2020, we're going to give you a black wristband that's going to be provided to you at check-in on day 1. We ask you to wear that wristband around the facility. By all means, if you are not a player who likes to wear wristbands, you do not have to wear it during gameplay. Certainly, if you're not a pitcher, you don't have to feel like you need to wear that while you pitch. But what we do ask is that in between games, when you're roaming around the facility talking to these college coaches, just slip that on your wrist. And that'll help coaches know, hey, this is a member of the class of 2020. This is somebody who I can have a recruiting conversation with. Now, for the members of the class of 2021 and younger, so rising juniors and younger, you all have not completed September 1st of your junior year. This means you cannot have a recruiting conversation with a Division I coach. So that means you just can't talk to Division I coaches, right? Absolutely not. You are able to speak with them, just can't have a recruiting conversation with them. So what can you talk about? We've got a few things for here that we certainly recommend and would ask you to do. First of all, you should introduce yourself, exchange pleasantries, tell them about yourself, find a little bit about them, let them know where you're from. That type of conversation is 100% compliant when it comes to this NCAA legislation. Also, these coaches are going to be on the field, in the dugouts with you. Please use them for instruction during the games. If you're out at shortstop and you make a really nice play, or maybe you make an error on the ball that's hit to your backhand, there's going to be a coach behind you. It might be Coach Frawley from Yale. Turn to Coach Frawley and say, Coach, what'd you see on that play? Right? What did I do wrong? What could I have done differently there? Maybe you're in the dugout and Max mentioned a double cut scenario earlier, right? Make sure that if you see a double cut take shape in a way that you don't practice on your high school team, ask the coach in your dugout, Coach, is that how you guys run double cuts? I've never seen a double cut like that. Use these guys as a resource while you're out on the field and in the dugouts. And last and certainly not least, maybe most importantly, these are some highly trained, highly skilled coaches. Use them to improve your game on a little bit of a larger level. They're going to be watching you all so intently. After the games, ask them what they saw. See how, what they saw, what they can offer from a skill development standpoint might be able to help you as a ball player going forward. So as a member of the class of 2021, or if you're a younger player, there are plenty of things to talk about, plenty of great connections to be made with these Division I coaches. And I keep saying Division I because that's the rule. This NCAA legislation only applies to coaches from the Division I ranks. So if you're a member of the class of 2021 or younger and you want to have a recruiting conversation with Coach Perez from Emory, a great Division III institution, there is nothing keeping you from that. You are more than welcome and encouraged, and it is totally compliant to do so. One more note from me here. I want to talk about our video provider at camp, NextPro. NextPro offers a pretty unique product. They video every pitch of every game. They then tag all of those videos to the pitcher and the hitter involved in each play. And they then sort of put into a database all of that footage, which is searchable by that hitter or pitcher, and give access to our college coaches. So it's, again, a pretty unique product here. So essentially what a coach will be able to see after a camp is they'll be able to go in and type in a player's name, number 57 McKenna. Once they put that into the database, all of Max's at-bats, whether they be pitching and or hitting, will pop up, and that coach will be able to sort of relive every single one of those pitcher and or hitter at-bats from the camp. So obviously a very, very powerful tool for the coaches who come to our camps from a recruiting standpoint, being able to go back and watch maybe an at-bat of a player that they missed and wanted to see while they were at camp. Or they saw something very interesting in someone's swing and they just want to check that out again. They can see that via the video. The video is actually 5 different camera angles that are pointing at the pitcher and the hitter from different areas of the field. Importantly, this video is also available to you if you'd like it. And there are a couple more features there. In addition to those 5 camera angles that I mentioned, there's a full field camera angle as well that can capture defensive plays too. And they take footage of our defensive showcase. And all of that will be offered to you and available for purchase through NextPro's website. If you haven't gotten an email from NextPro yet, they'll be sending you one soon, and certainly after camp as well. Again, that package can be purchased through NextPro's website.
Awesome. Thank you. And now we're through kind of the planned bulk of the evening. So we're going to take the next really little bit, and I know that we have about 28 minutes left in the promised webinar time, so we'll take as much of that as we need to answer all of your questions during our live Q&A. Now, I know a lot of you have found this question button, but just to send in a question, you'll find the questions tab in the GoToWebinar toolbar and just type it right in there. And if it's more kind of a personal one-off question, we'll address it via chat. Jed's helping out and addressing via chat, or we'll phrase it out to either Corey or myself to answer it to the whole group. If you have to run at any point, a few things. One, we're recording this webinar and we'll be sending it out to all enrolled families in the next couple days. So stay tuned for that. If you have to run off, you're not going to miss anything. You'll have a chance to revisit. Or if there's a question that comes up later tonight or tomorrow or in a week and a half, whatever the case may be, we're always available to answer any of those questions. You see there on the screen our phone number, our email address. We also have a live chat function on our website. So if you're sitting in a meeting and losing focus and have a question about camp, you find our website, type that question in there, and we'll be able to answer that in real time as well. Corey, first question that I'm going to put out to you, and then I'll tag in if needed. These are long days. We need to fuel up for these student athletes. What's the hydration situation? Key during these warm summer days. Hydration, fueling up. What's the food scenario like at Baseball Heaven? How are we keeping these players hydrated and fueled up?
Absolutely important indeed, Max. I will hit the hydration piece first. There is going to be water in every single dugout on each field at the facility. We will be replenishing those throughout the day, have cups for players. Players are more than welcome to use their own water bottles if they'd like, but we will have that water available for players throughout the day. It will just be water. There will not be Gatorade or any other type of specialty drinks available, but we will have that water available throughout the day. Certainly, if players want to bring their own drinks into the facility, that is no problem. There is sort of no rule against bringing in coolers or anything like that. It is certainly encouraged for players and parents alike. Now, when it comes to food, there are several options here as well. One of the things that we put in the program that we'll give you when you check into camp on day one is some local information, right? Just sort of highlighting a few places that are within a mile of the facility where you can go and grab something for yourself, for your ball player, very quickly, be back on site in a matter of minutes. Also of note, at Baseball Heaven, there is the Baseball Cafe. The Baseball Cafe is run by our great friend Joe. Joe does a great job of taking care of us, players, families throughout our stay on Long Island. It is sort of more than just a concession stand. There actually is a concession stand down by the fields that you can get a few things at. But the Baseball Cafe, which is near the entrance where you'll check in the morning, is sort of a full-blown restaurant, can get things very quickly to go. So you're more than welcome to stop by and see Joe, and there are plenty of options in there. So certainly, if you'd like to not leave site all day, there are plenty of options to get food and drink. But there are also many options that are close by if you'd prefer something else.
Awesome, thank you, Corey. And next question is one kind of about the showcasing at different positions, but also the playing time breakdown as far as I can understand. Can you clarify the breakdown between primary and secondary positions? And then kind of secondarily, and what we'll touch on, how that applies to primary pitchers, secondary pitchers, and pitchers only as well. As Corey mentioned, and this is a meeting that I have with all the student athletes on the morning of day one, right before the showcase. They can showcase at whatever position they want. I generally advise that they showcase at a position that they play, but if they're feeling particularly outfieldery on a given day, they have every right and every opportunity to showcase any position they want. As Corey mentioned, we do ask that they showcase at one position. So most players do choose to showcase at their primary position. Now, their secondary position, they will have plenty of opportunity to play during the game. So during each game, players will have the chance to play the bulk of their innings at their primary position and also a handful of innings at their secondary position as well. So the reason we ask for both of those positions during registration is to balance those teams to make sure that every player is getting ample playing time, first of all, at their primary position during games, but also at their secondary position as well. For pitchers, what this generally means, as Corey referenced, on the morning of day one, if you're a pitcher, and Corey and I we're both pitchers, we are certainly empathetic to the pitcher plight. If you are a pitcher and you are going to be pitching in games later that day, because every pitcher who is feeling up to it is going to have the opportunity to pitch on day one and on day two. If you're a pitcher who does not want to get your arm hot, you don't want to, go full speed to showcase from the outfield, do an overhand throwing velocity, and then come back and get warm again later on and throw later in the day, you do not have to. And there's additional programming that we call the pitcher power profile that gives coaches additional insights into how explosive you are with your lower and your upper half, and kind of points to your ceiling and your power output as a pitcher. If you're a primary pitcher and you are a secondary middle infielder and you do want to showcase, you can certainly showcase at that middle infield position on the morning of day one. If you're a pitcher only and you don't want to play first base during the games, but you do want to showcase with the outfielders or with the first baseman or with the catchers, you have certainly that opportunity as well. All pitchers only, primary, secondary, will have the opportunity to throw in one of the games on both days. So if you're a primary pitcher, what we generally ask you to do is you'll be throwing most of the time 2 innings on day one, and then you'll come back and we'll assign you 2 innings on day two, both consecutive. One thing that we don't do is get a pitcher hot twice in a day. It's from arm health perspective, it's one of the things that it's one of the hardest lines in the sand that we have is we won't have you throw 1 inning in your first game and then 1 in your second game. So we'll have you throw 2 in your first game. Now, one thing that we do is we check in with pitchers upon arrival on both days of camp. So if Max McKenna shows up on site and I'm listed as a pitcher, I check in with Whitey, our pitching coordinator, and he says, "Great, how's your arm feel?" "It feels great, coach." "Great, you're probably going to get 2 innings. We'll let you know what they are later on." That's day one. I go throw those 2 innings. I arrive back on day two for my game, and I'm feeling a little sore. I'm feeling a little tender. And I say, Whitey says, "Max, we have you scheduled for 2 innings." And I say, I'm really only feeling 1. "Okay, great. We can make that adjustment." Or if you're saying we have you for 1 and you say, "I feel great. I would love to throw 4. We might not get you 4, but we might be able to pick up that extra inning or 2 for you. So that's kind of how the pitching breakdown works. We do assign more innings on day 1 and day 2 to primary pitchers, and secondary pitchers can generally expect 1 inning on each day, although that does depend on the pitching breakdown and obviously on the arm health and how the other pitchers on their team are feeling as well. Corey, from an engagement perspective, I'm reaching out to some coaches on the list. How many coaches should I reach out to? How can I personalize this? Who should I email? The recruiting coordinator, the head coach, the coach that's coming to camp, the coach that isn't coming to camp? Kind of how do you advise student athletes through that pre-camp email outreach?
Yeah, absolutely. There is not a set number of schools that we are going to tell you is the ideal number of schools that you should reach out to before checking in on that day one morning at 7 a.m. There's no magic number. It's not like if you reach out to 15 schools, then perfect, you've done your job. You need to reach out to the schools that you have interest in attending, schools that you are legitimately interested in considering. If there is a school that is a phenomenal school, like they all are on our list, that you know is a great school, but you don't have any interest in going to college at that school, don't email them. Don't email them. Just in the same way that you wouldn't want a coach to sort of falsely lead you on, you don't want to do the same thing to a college coach. So a little bit of a simple answer there. But if the number is 10, if the number is 20, if it's 25, if it's 5, the number of schools that you're interested in, those are the ones who you should reach out to before camp. Now, how do you do that? Max did a really nice job of laying this out beforehand. It's all about personalization. There are certainly ways, and we all know how to sort of send a a mass email. There are many different ways to do that to a group of folks. That's not the way to do it. You want to add that personal touch point in the email. If this is someone that you have met before, emailed with before, you want to reference that. If it's a school that you've visited in the past, you want to reference that. Really take the time to personalize these emails. We're talking about, maybe if you've got a bunch of schools on your list, maybe we're talking about 90 minutes of work from you before camp. That's really going to go a long way. So I think we all have the 90 minutes to sacrifice to make sure that we're taking advantage of the opportunity in front of us. And in terms of who you should reach out to, certainly the coach that is going to be attending camp. Those coaches are listed on our website. Those coaches change as recruiting schedules change, and we update those in real time on the site. So if you checked the site a couple of weeks ago and saw that Coach Ryan Munger from Davidson is supposed to be at camp, if you check the site this evening, you'll see that Coach Lindquist from Davidson is attending camp. Those changes happen, so make sure that you check that site because it does indeed get updated. Now, of course, if there is a coach on staff who you have had a ton of conversation with, if you've been speaking and texting and calling, Coach Munger for the past 3 months, and now Coach Lindquist is attending camp, that's totally fine. Still send Coach Lindquist an email, but also send Ryan an email. Send Coach Munger an email, letting him know, hey, send Coach Lindquist an email. Really excited to meet him and see him at Honor Roll Session 5 up on Long Island.
Absolutely. And I think that a key thing that Corey certainly explained super well and touched on was this research going in. Do your homework and personalize this outreach to show that you are genuinely interested in a program. These coaches are watching thousands of players play over the course of the summer at different tournaments and showcases and travel games and everything in between. If you say, hey, Coach Gordon from Duke, I like Duke because it plays great baseball and has great academics, sure. It does. That's true of all 100 schools that are also on site. So there's no telling that Coach Gordon doesn't know that is legitimate outreach and legitimate interest in what Duke specifically has to offer. So take the time to put in 2 or 3 very specific things about what it is about that school that offers the right fit. The other thing on this that I will touch on is doing all this homework beforehand is great. And you're going to know some of the schools that you're already interested in. You're going to know some of this. You're going to go down the list of schools that are going to be at camp, and you're going to see some that you aren't interested in as well. It's too close to home. It's too far away from home. It's too cold. It's too hot. Whatever it is that are your non-negotiables as you start to build your college list. But what I always encourage is keep an open mind at camp. I think that one sometimes unrecognized part of this 2-day experience is it can be such a valuable discovery platform for student athletes who are looking for the right fit at the next level. You might show up knowing that there are 5 schools that you really like that are there, and they might be Duke and Vanderbilt and UVA, and then all of a sudden you meet Coach Lindquist from Davidson, and you just click. Something about how Link coaches is that resonates with you, and you say, you know what? I need to learn more about these Davidson Wildcats and see what they're all about. I'd never heard of Davidson, apart from it was somewhere that I heard Steph Curry went way back in the day. I'd never heard of it, but I connect with this coach. So use this as a discovery platform. Keep an open mind. That, to Corey's point about research, does not forgive that research. Just because you didn't know anything about Davidson when you first met Coach Lindquist, guess what? You have a computer in your pocket in most cases. Do a little research right there so that you walk up to that next conversation with this coach that you just got some interest in their school and know something about their program. Know how they did last year. Know what majors the kids on their team are looking at. And just kind of do that research before camp, but then also have an open mind and be ready to do some of that homework on the fly as you talk to coaches at camp too. Corey, the next question that I'm going to phrase to you, pretty quick one. 60s.
Yes.
Laser timed, hand timed. What's our tech look like on the 60-yard dash?
We are lucky enough to be proud owners of Smart Speed Technology, Max, which is an awesome laser timing system that we really enjoy using, and I think the players enjoy using as well. Really, really solid technology that is used in a lot of professional sport combines like the NFL and NBA combines. So laser time 60s at the event.
Certainly. And one follow-up question to that just came in is kind of the warming up for the defensive showcase for that 60-yard dash. We give the players a lot of opportunity to stretch as a full unit. We take them through a dedicated warm-up that is designed for what they're about to do, which is, swing the bat hard, throw the ball hard, field the ball, run hard, all these different pieces to make sure that they are warm. They also do have a little bit of time on their own during that warm-up and then before they run the 60 where they're able to warm up there as well. As a parent, one quick answer one quick question I'm going to phrase you, Corey, and then one more involved. As a parent, how do I approach camp? Do I bring a cooler? Do I bring a folding chair? And what is my role at camp as my son approaches these conversations?
Yes, we'll go with the quick hitter first. Whatever you'd like. We have seen parents come in bare bones with just whatever they have in their pockets. We've seen entire sort of tents and those fancy chairs with the leg rests and the built-in canopies that look awfully nice that I'd like to take in some camp from as well. Really, we do not charge a gate fee. There's not going to be a security person at the gate checking what you bring in. By all means, feel free to bring the food, bring the drink that you need to last over the course of the day, and whatever is going to be comfortable for you from a seating perspective. There is plenty of seating at Baseball Heaven. There are seats at every field. Some of the fields have a little bit bigger grandstands as well. So by all means, you do not need to bring anything with you, but certainly feel free to bring whatever is going to make you comfortable. From that sort of larger perspective, right? Sort of the parent perspective, how to approach camp, how can I be helpful? The main point that I want to hit on here, and Max, I know you have some great thoughts on this as well, but the thing to remember as a parent going into this event is that the coaches are there to recruit your ball player. Some of you might still have some eligibility left, and that might be enticing, but they are not there to recruit the parents. They are there to recruit the ball players. Basically, what that boils down to is that the parents play a very, very important role in this process, but especially when it comes to interacting with the college coaches, starting conversations with the college coaches, really igniting, starting that process, that needs to be done by the players. The players need to be the ones who go up and introduce themselves to the college coach, who make that initial contact, make that initial connection. By all means, we've seen parents do it, and maybe it's worked out for them. But to go up to a college coach and say, hey, my son is number 27 and he's playing on field 2, you should go watch him right now. That's fine. It's just generally not received incredibly well by the college coaching community. But if a player comes up to him and says, hey, coach, my name's Corey Spera, really interested in playing baseball at Lafayette College. I'm playing on field 2 next game. Would love for you to come check my game out. There's a better chance of having success with that method. Now, again, like I mentioned, there is a place for parent. There's such an important role in this process, even at camp. What you'll find is that when your ball player is having conversations with some of these coaches, you might be asked to come be a part of those conversations. As Max was laying out a little bit earlier, maybe you've never heard of Davidson before, you and your ball player, and your ball player's having that great conversation with Coach Lindquist. Maybe Coach Link wants to bring you in on that conversation so that you can learn a little bit more about the school in addition to your ball player learning about the school. So, of course, in addition to those things that go without saying and being a great positive, reinforcer and there cheering for your ball player and, making sure that they're as comfortable as possible. Again, there's certainly a role that parents play when interacting with the college coaches, but that should be something that is not initiated by the parents.
Absolutely. I think Corey said it perfectly. These coaches are there to recruit student athletes who they think are the right fit. Part of that is having the genuine interest in a school and the maturity to look a coach in the eye, give them a firm handshake, say, hey, Coach Kiefer, my name is Max McKenna. I'm really interested in being an Amherst Mammoth. I'd love to. I love the Pioneer Valley, and starting those conversations. So my general rule, my hard and fast rule is first point of contact should come from the player. And this includes the emails that you send between now and when camp starts and those on-site conversations as well. There's a lot of space in this process for parents as support systems for their ball players, as the people that know a 16 or 17-year-old better than that ball player knows themselves oftentimes about what they're looking for. But really having that first point of contact be with the player, I think is a really key sign that your son is interested in these programs and has the maturity and the confidence to walk up to a coach and make this introduction. On that point of emails, there's been a couple follow-up questions about sending these introduction emails to college coaches. How do you find their email address? What should you include in them? Should a 2021 or a 2022 or a 2023 send these emails? And I'm going to kind of roll this into one and see if I can address a bunch of these all at once. First of all, for 2021, 2022, these younger players who can't have these quote unquote recruiting specific conversations with college coaches absolutely can still send these emails. And I would encourage them to send these emails. They're a great way to get on these coaches' radar. Now, understand that the response for some of these players, these coaches often have an actual canned response. They will copy and paste, and it will say, Corey, you're a 2021. Thank you for sending along your academic information, your video, etc. I cannot have a recruiting specific conversation with you, but here's when our school specific prospect camps are. And so they'll have some sort of canned response that they will oftentimes reply with. But I do highly encourage 2021s and 2022s to send these emails to the coaches at the schools that they're interested in to get on their radar and put their information in that coach's inbox. Next up, how do I find that inbox? We do not post coach's email address on our website. We post which coach is coming from which school, but we believe that a really good place to start the accountability and proactivity of our student athletes is in going to Davidson's website, going to Amherst's website, and finding the email for the coach. These coaches, their inboxes, their email addresses are listed on their athletics website, and it's a pretty quick Google search to get to. And it also, we don't post it, so it's a really good side of interest. If Corey Spira goes on the internet and finds Coach Dixon's email address for Lafayette, great. He took at least one step to find that inbox and send Coach Dixon an email that indicates his interest in Lafayette. Sometimes there'll be specific email addresses for each coach. Sometimes it will be a baseball at Lafayette. Whatever the inbox is that you see, I would send a note to that email address. And then what should these emails include? Should it include highlight video? Should it include showcase video? Should it include transcript, test scores, links to your profile? The answer is make this as simple as possible for coaches to have your information. If you have an online recruiting profile, whether it's Sports Recruits or Be Recruited or Field Level or NCSA, whatever the case is, include a link to that, because that is always going to have your most up-to-date information. It's going to have the test scores that you just got back. It's going to have the latest round of transcripts, rather than making them search through all these different emails for different attachments. It'll have your updated video. So if you have that recruiting profile, that's a really good way to create a one-stop shop for these coaches to find all of the most up-to-date information for you. In that email, include anything that coaches might need. If you have a transcript, yes, send it along. If you have a link to a highlight video, yes, send it along. If you have your latest test score, definitely send it along. They're very interested in these things. If you have your 60 time, you have it on film, send the video. If you don't have the video, but you have the 60 time, send that if that's a part of your game. Whatever information these college coaches need to recruit you, things like your objective measurements, certainly your academics are a key piece, and how you play the game of baseball, put all of that in that email and make it succinct and as short as possible and simple, so that they're not having to wade through 750 words to get to what they need. But if you put it all in one place, it's just going to make it simpler for them to be able to see what they need to know about you and to recruit you. So that's generally what I advise. Corey, they're going to be on site. There's going to be about 100 college coaches there at,
Yes.
at each of these sessions. That's a lot of people to try to tell apart. How can I find the coaches at the schools that I am interested in? Are they wearing balloons that like Mario Kart that has the name of their school hanging from them?
It's a great idea, Max, and maybe something to consider in the future. For the upcoming 5 sessions, that will not be the case. A couple of things here. I've mentioned a couple times the program that you're going to receive when you check in. In that program is a picture of every coach who is scheduled to be in attendance. So you're going to have a picture of that coach, which is certainly going to help you identify who that coach is when you're on site. There's also going to be some other helpful information in there. It will say Lafayette College, Andrew Dixon. Andrew's picture will be right there. It'll say the school colors. It'll say the mascot, things that will help you pick them out of the crowd of 100 college coaches who are going to be there. Also, we ask coaches to wear branded clothing each day at camp. So there will not really be a scenario where a coach is just sort of wearing shorts, a gray T-shirt, and no hat. And you say, who the heck is that guy? That's a very reasonable question. Coaches will be wearing sort of classic practice attire. They'll be branded from head to toe with their university's colors and emblems. So you're certainly going to be able to pick them out that way. And if you are ever struggling and you're looking for Coach Dixon at Lafayette, or you're looking, for Coach Kiefer from Amherst, and you just can't quite find them, not exactly sure where they are, grab one of us. Our Head First staff is going to be wearing red shirts that say Head First on them, so we'll be pretty easy to pick out. Grab one of us and let us know who you're looking for. We'll be more than happy to direct you in that way.
Absolutely. And one additional thing is posted on the mobile site. And you'll hear a lot about the mobile site. We'll send out an email the day before camp that'll include a link to it so you're able to find it. That is where we'll house all the schedule updates, the team assignments, the game schedules, everything like that. Also posted on that site will be a coach rotation matrix where you'll be able to look and see, oh, Coach Kiefer from Amherst is in coaching group A, and coaching group A is currently on field 3. So I know that by looking at that Coach Kiefer is a field instructor, or he's in the first base dugout of this coaching group, and so I can help find them there. During each game slot, half the coaches will be assigned to specific fields, and half will be roaming. So at any given time, you can know exactly where half the coaches are going to be because they're going to be assigned to fields. The other ones, as Corey mentioned, grab one of us or look for that branded attire to help you find them as well. A couple questions, because I know we're coming up against time. A couple questions that I'm going to answer kind of rapid fire. What specific metrics are recorded at camp, and do I get access to the metrics? Short answer is yes. You can always ask one of us on site, and we'll have those metrics available. Beginning really during gameplay on that first day, we'll be able to let you know. You can also submit that request through the mobile site, and we can get back to you by email so you have it in writing as well. Or if you realize a week later you didn't get it, what we're going to do is at the back end of camp, we're going to send out a merge that has everybody's metrics in it. So Corey Spiro will get an email saying, Corey, thank you for coming. Here's your 60 time. Here's your batted ball velocity. Here's your overhand throwing velocity. Those are the ones that we collect at camp. For everybody who does the offensive showcase, we'll collect their batted ball velocity off a tee. For everybody who does the defensive showcase, we'll do, after they showcase on the field in front of the coaches, we'll bring them directly over to a radar gun setup where we'll collect their overhand throwing velocity. We don't do this during the defensive showcase because we want it in a bit more controlled setting where you're thrown into a screen from a close distance, and it really gives you ability to just cut loose and really show that arm's strength outside of having to, hit a target all the way across the field. And then also that 60 time that we mentioned as well. For the pitcher power profile, we collect some additional ones. We collect broad jump, vertical leap, a 5-10-5 agility shuttle, a couple med ball tosses to measure some of that power output. We can also pass those along to pitchers that go through that too. Next up, what information is provided to coaches on players before camp, during camp, after camp? Before camp, coaches get access to all of the information that you guys filled out when you registered. This includes SAT score, unweighted GPA, travel coach information, high school, etc., PSAT, all that academic information and more that you guys filled out, including your email, phone, whoever the account email, so whichever parent registered as the primary parent, it'll include that email and phone number, as well as the student athlete email and phone number as well. So they have all the contact information, all the academic information that you provided when you registered before camp. We'll also provide that to them in hard copy the morning of the first day of camp, as well as in a couple other ways that they'll have access to it. Once they're at camp, they will also receive all of your objective measurements. They'll receive any updates that you guys kind of think of on site. If you're like, actually, I have an updated SAT score, or whatever the case is, let us know and we'll circulate that, that as an addendum as well. To make sure this information is up to date, if you go back to the confirmation email that you got when you first registered for camp, there's a link over on the right-hand side of that email that says log in to my profile or something along those lines. If you click there and log in, you can go in and check all of your information just to make sure that it's all up to date. If something isn't, you have the ability to edit it right there. If you can't find that confirmation email or you're having any difficulty at all, I would say go to our website and find us on the live chat and just ping us with what any updates might be, and we can make sure that they are updated in advance of camp. If you let us know on site, that's certainly fine, and we can let coaches know. I generally advise any information that you can have up to date before camp starts is going to be in coaches' hands earlier, and that is what ultimately, especially that academic information, is so key to their recruiting. I advise that whenever possible, having that up-to-date information in place before camp starts is what I generally recommend. I want to make sure we respect everybody's time, and so I want to wrap this up here. I know there are still a couple questions that are a bit more kind of one-off and individualized. Jed and I will be sticking around to make sure that we answer all of those questions via chat right now. If you have to hop off, again, please remember this is not the last time you have to get your questions answered before we see you in person. You see our phone number and email address on the phone. You see our website. Ping us there at any time, and we can make sure we get back to you with the proper answer. On behalf of everybody who you heard from tonight and who you'll see on site wearing a red shirt in the coming weeks, thank you so much for taking the time this evening, and we're really excited to meet you guys and have a chance to speak directly in a couple weeks at Baseball Heaven. Thank you.